About a decade later, at the height of Jewish migration to America, Maggie Gyllenhaal's great-grandfather, Benjamin Silbowitz, stepped off the boat at Ellis Island and settled just blocks from 68 Mott Street. On the Lower East Side, industry was thriving and jobs were plentiful, especially in the garment trade. Could you turn the page? Your great-granduncle left behind an oral history that tells us about your great-grandfather, Benjamin. Could you please read what it says here?
When Benjamin finally was let out from Ellis Island, he was on his own, in a strange land, strange language, so Benjamin had to swim or sink. He landed a job to cut flowers for ladies' hats, $3 a week. He persevered hard, and after many jobs, he became a cutter in the ladies' garment trade. It sounds like it was really rough.
Benjamin lived through such hardship.
Yeah, I mean, I think he used to make my mom coats out of leftover scraps from where he would work as a cutter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like many of his neighbors on the Lower East Side, Benjamin Silbowitz's journey to New York had been long and arduous. Born in what's now Latvia and was then Russia, Benjamin grew up in a time and place where Jewish ancestry was a distinct disadvantage.
By the end of the 19th century, in Russia, there are lay laws that severely restrict the kinds of occupations Jews can enter, where Jews can live, whether they can get higher education, and so forth.
The Jews weren't allowed to own land in my grandfather's time in Russia.
Maggie's mom, Naomi, remembers her grandfather Benjamin well.
He would tell me stories that they were very badly treated. The young Jewish boys were going to be conscripted into the army, and a couple of them cut off their toes and ran away in the middle of the night and did whatever they could to avoid being in the Tsar's army. They did almost anything.
At the time, Russia was in the midst of a bitter war against the Japanese, a war that fueled a seemingly insatiable demand for soldiers.
Thousands of Jews are conscripted. The Russian army tended to treat soldiers like cannon fodder. And it's no great surprise that somebody would have decided to escape.
Your great-granduncle tells us what happened next, if you please turn the page. Could you read that?
There was a secret way to leave and cross the Russian border into Germany. There were certain agents who operated for money to help these young men who did not serve the Tsar to cross into Germany. From there on, they were on their own.
You ever hear this story? Your family ever talk about? Benjamin finally made it to America in 1906. After some years living on the Lower East Side, he moved his wife and daughters up to the Bronx, where he opened a small family business.
There was a gas station and a little store on a little corner street. My mother and her sisters pumped gas, and they went to school. They did extremely well. You know, they went on to do these things that I don't think anybody dreamed of.
While very few women had professions at this time, Naomi's mother, Maggie's grandmother, graduated from medical school and became a respected pediatrician. Naomi remembers her mother being on call 18 hours a day alongside her father, who also worked at the hospital.
We're passing the Brooklyn Jewish Hospital, which I think is now just an apartment building, but it was where I was born and where my parents were interns. Being a professional working person and being a mother at that time was really, really difficult.
I think for my grandmother to have come from these immigrant parents from Russia and her father having done what he did, and then to have become a doctor and to have raised my mother, that was an incredible thing to do.
Ruth Silbowitz made remarkable contributions to the field of medicine. She invented a method of testing newborns for birth defects that received national recognition.
This is what I've heard a lot about, you know, this kind of thing. And these women, you know, my grandmother and my aunt, who were professionals and women such a long time ago at such a different time.
Did you ever wonder how the Silbowitz girls got their incredible drive?
I feel like it must have had something to do with their parents. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's in their blood.
We couldn't trace Maggie or Robert's Jewish ancestors much further than their great-grandparents, which is actually quite common among Eastern European Jewish people. Persecuted for centuries across Europe, Jewish records were often burned in violent pogroms or lost in forced migrations from place to place.